I have a very special guest on the podcast today. My son Danny is going to talk about his current favorite podcasts. He was a natural with a microphone, and it was so much fun hearing about podcasts he enjoys in a longer conversation than we usually have about them, which normally goes something like this. I want to listen to insert podcast name right now, Mom. I'm Andy Smiley, the Friendly Podcast Guide. I'm a mom who uses podcasts to fight the boredom and loneliness of motherhood and to entertain my kids when I need a break. And I want you to be able to use podcasts in these ways too. But it can be overwhelming to try and find a podcast you or your kids will enjoy in the thousands of shows that are out there. That's where I come in. Each week, I talk about different podcasts with topics ranging from parenting to pop culture and everything in between. My episodes are short and they answer your questions about the show, so you'll know if it's a good fit for you or your kids or not. Now, let's talk podcasts. Danny has been listening to podcasts since he was born, because I found podcasts around the time he was born. But in the last 2 years or so, we've found the world of kid podcasts, and his interest in finding his own podcast that he loves has skyrocketed. I can't wait to introduce you to him and his favorite shows. But first, let me talk about my guide to kid podcasts. Danny only shares 3 kid podcasts with you today, so if you're looking for more options, I have a resource for you. I use kid podcasts all the time as a mom. And you can too. You can use them when you're running errands with the kiddos to keep them from complaining the whole time. Or when you need a mom break, you can just grab an easy activity like coloring pages or magnet tiles, turn on a kid podcast, and your kids will be entertained for at least half an hour. And that is only the tip of the iceberg of ways that you can use kid podcasts. And to help you figure out which one's the best for you and your kids, I made a guide to kid podcasts. There are 8 categories ranging from science to mindfulness to audio drama, with at least 3 podcasts in each category. There are 28 podcasts in total on the guide. I've listened to each of the podcasts, so I can attest to them being kid-friendly. And I put my email at the bottom of the guide so that if you try a couple with your kids and none of them are a good fit, you can email me and I will personally help you find a kid podcast that works for your littles and you. You can grab this guide at the link in the show notes. Now you get to hear my adorable conversation with Danny, who's in 1st grade, as he divulges some of his favorite podcasts. Danny, it's really fun to have you on my podcast today.
Okay.
As a little introduction to my listeners, can you tell me what is the last podcast that you listened to?
Usually Wiley Lewis stories. It's one of my favorites, but not in my top favorites.
Okay, fabulous. Lively Lewis stories. Yes, that is one of the favorites in our house right now. So tell me, Danny, how did you first get into podcasts? Do you remember the first time you listened to podcasts?
Let's see. It was called Story Pirates. It was our first kid podcast.
So I know you have you have 3 kid podcasts to tell us about today that are your favorites. What's the first kid podcast that you have for us today?
This is a really new one. And to me, they haven't put out their 2nd season, but it's been my favorite ever since they put it on Storybet. And it's called Pixel Quest. It's really fun. In the first season, they save one, and there's a few other. I think there are 5. And there's these really strong dudes like guarding the place, and it's really fun.
Fabulous. And so, where does this all take place?
Usually in the forest. It started at a house. Yeah, it's like a video game.
That sounds awesome. You love video games.
Yeah. Valheim is one of my favorites. I also like Smash Bros.
Yes, you do. Okay, fabulous. So that's Pixel Quest, which you can find on Story Button. I don't know if it's on all of the apps. I'll look it up for all of you listening so that you can know where to find that. We have a Story Button at our house that the kids listen to in their room. it's just a kid podcast player. We absolutely love it. And that's where we found Pixel Quest. Okay, what is your second podcast for us today, Dan?
It came out. I started listening. The first season came out when we first got Story Button. It's called Miles the Brave, and it's one of my favorites. It's about a kid going to this special forest, and some people are like trying to make it a zoo and take all the life out of it and turn it into a zoo so they can be like the richest people in the universe.
Wow. And how many seasons are there now, Danny?
3.
What's your favorite season so far?
3. It's because they go fight Noctis and cool stuff like that.
That's awesome. And who's your favorite character in Miles the Brave?
I like Pax a lot.
Why do you like Pax?
He's just like this huge, brave, cool lion.
Well, that's awesome. And you love animals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's probably like 10 times bigger than a normal lion.
Wow.
Maybe even like a tiger.
That sounds awesome. Those are some of your favorite things, huh? Okay, and for today, what is your last podcast recommendation for us?
I also like Grimmer, Grimmest. There are different episodes. I like Grimmest a lot and Grimmer. Those are my 2 favorites.
And tell us a little bit more about the stories. Like, what kind of stories are they?
They're like they're often like sometimes a little scary, sometimes medium scary, and sometimes like pretty scary, but not scary enough to scare the crap out of you.
Do you remember where the narrator gets the stories from?
No idea.
They're stories from the Brothers Grimm, but they're like the actual stories that are kind of creepy and silly.
Barely makes any sense to me.
Okay, those are some of our favorites right now. Do you remember what's your favorite Grimmer, Grimmest story right now?
I already told you. It's Grimmer and Grimmest. Those are my 2 favorites.
Do you remember a specific story from Grimmer, Grimmest that you really liked?
I like the animals one a lot.
Oh, where they're making a band?
It's really fun and creepy and cool.
I don't remember what that one's called, but I'll look it up because we just listened to that one recently. It was a good one. Okay, Dan, do you have any advice for moms or parents who are wanting to help their kids get into kid podcasts?
Well, you could buy Story Button. It's only like something bucks. It's I don't think it's as high as 10, but it's pretty cheaper.
And do you have anything else that you want to add to our podcast conversation?
Let's see here. I think there's an app on Story Button where you can just find some podcasts. I think there's also an app, not just a radio thing.
I use Spotify, and I use just my podcast app to get kid podcasts too. So there's lots of options, huh?
Yeah. Or you can search Go Kid Go. They have a lot of good ones there.
That's true. We love Go Kid Go, huh? Yeah. Really quick, what's your favorite Go Kid Go story podcast right now?
Probably Bobby Wonder.
We love Bobby Wonder. Why do you like Bobby Wonder?
It's just cool. Well, I'm also really interested into this Silver Lining. It's really new to Go Kid Go.
Yeah, we haven't listened to that one yet, but it's on the list, huh?
Uh-huh. Now you can ask me the question.
That's all of our questions. Oh. Danny, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It's been a lot of fun.
You're welcome.
I am so lucky to be Danny's mom. Don't you agree? I wanted to give a little bit more context about the shows he talked about so that you can figure out if they're a good fit for your kiddos. The first show Danny talked about, Pixel Quest, is about a boy in a video game type world that can't level up like his friends, but he still goes on an adventure to save the 4 heroes that are scattered throughout this world. It's new, like he said. Right now, only the first season is out, but we know that there must be another season coming. Danny did a great job describing Miles the Brave, and I have nothing to add to that one. And the only thing I wanted to tell you about the third show Danny recommended, Grim, Grimmer, Grimmest, is that the shows are rated grim, which means not very scary, Grimmer, which is a little bit scary and maybe kind of gross, and Grimmest, which is scary and probably at least a little gross. Danny said his favorites are Grimmer and Grimmest ones. All of the kid podcasts Danny talked about today will be in the show notes, so you can easily find whichever one you want to try out with your family. And if you want more kid podcast recommendations, you can grab my kid podcast guide. Talk to you soon.
Grimmer, Grimmest, that's another one of my favorites. Grimmer, Grimmest. Grim, Grimmer, Grimmest. Grim, Grimmer, Grimmest.